How does one simply hot to go in these conditions? That's not even the right artist for the week. Hello, and welcome back to Chaotic Paranormal and Occult History with me, your host, That Bone Lady. For the last week, I have been no brains, all gaga over Lady Gaga's new song, Abracadabra. And the rest of TikTok has really followed suit with this. And I was really inspired by a specific comment that she left on a video stating that, and I quote, "I had to rewrite the spell in the chorus at least 30 times. So I figured, Mother gave us music. How about we give her a little bit of knowledge to go alongside of that? This week we will be talking about the history and the etymology of the word abracadabra. We first see the word in the 2nd century AD in Rome. Quintus Serenus Sammonicus wrote it as a remedy for fever. In the 2nd century, fever had a lot of meanings. It could have been a variety of things. However, this was a time period where the supernatural and the superstitious were highly integrated into disease and medical care. So combating disease, fever, with an incantation is not necessarily uncommon for this time period. The incantation was written in a downward-facing pyramid with the removal of a letter per line. This matches what we know about banishment, to take away from or to remove. It was worn around the neck of the patient, and we actually have discovered papyrus leaves with this incantation written on it that date to this time period. So we have confirmation that it was used for that. From what we know about banishment, though, there's always a flip side of the coin, which would then lead to believe that if it was written on an upward-facing pyramid, it could then bring in good luck, abundance, or good fortune by building, or by building upon. There are 2 Hebrew phrases that it is thought that the word abracadabra comes from. One of them translates into, I create as I speak, and the other one translates into, I create like the word. This actually links the word abracadabra to the concept of creation, or manifestation, if you will. Yeah, so they've been calling us crazy all these years, but back in the 2nd century, there's also some similarity to the Latin and Greek word abraxas, and some thought that it could have been connected to the demon named after that word. However, there is no documentation, historical or otherwise, to connect this or support this. Can you imagine, though, living in Rome at that time and having been given this pyramid because you're really sick, and someone being like, demon, demonic, and you're over here like, man, I just have a cold. I'm just wearing the pyramid that they gave me for this cold that I got. I mean, I hear it's going around the neighborhood. Might stay home, buddy. No. Demon. Now, the word itself was also used by the sect of Balisades as a call to spirits for protection against illness. And this is where we first see the word abracadabra utilized as a protection instead of a banishment. Specifically as a protection invocation, which is really interesting because, again, we're still in this time period where supernatural and superstition and illness go hand in hand. This could be caused by demonic forces or the devil or whatever it may be. So it makes sense to call upon spirits for protection with it, but the invocation itself is really interesting when you think about it. Now, following that, in 16th century Italy, a book that translates into the Tree of Life, described the word abracadabra and a collection of spells as a cure from the heavens, from fevers, consumption, and fires. So we are actually seeing the connection of what they would have called demonic or devil or evil from fire being connected with fever, which is a really interesting thing to see come in. But also, they have taken the incantation at this point and turned it into a cure from the heavens. So the creation and manifestation behind the word itself is kind of being taken away, and we're putting it into a religious viewpoint. Now, if you can't remember, consumption was generally tuberculosis, although many other respiratory illnesses could have been mistaken and were mistaken for consumption. This disease ran rampant in Europe from the 1600s to the 1800s, peaking in the 1800s, causing 25% of all deaths at the time. It ran longer than that. As we're seeing, we're having a tuberculosis outbreak in the U.S. right now, but this time period itself was really important for becoming the name consumption, because it was spread by air, but we didn't learn it was spread by air until the late 1800s. So we had these people thinking that consumption was vampires. It was believed that if someone in the household got consumption, then the other members of the household were also going to get consumption. Fair enough. Great take. Glad we have that. However, it was believed that the original case was due to a vampiric cause that then sucked the life and the health from all of the other members of the family and caused their subsequent deaths as well. Which, can you imagine? You're sick as hell. You got the tuberculosis and you just want to sleep, but your family's just placing garlic and iron all around you. Stay away, vampire. But Mom, it's the cold. No colds for them. Oopsies. During the Black Plague, a Puritan minister by the name of Increase Mather. Can you imagine your first name being Increase? God, that's awful. I mean, I guess it's probably pretty explanatory why this guy was so angry all the time. Dismissed the word abracadabra as bereft of power. This is during the Black Plague, and at the same time, Daniel Defoe is writing dismissively about Londoners that are using the word during the plague to try to protect themselves from the plague. Also, it's really important to note that Daniel Defoe was so busy hiding from his creditors during this time period that he actually did not get the plague, which is fair because he's hiding. Dying from the plague, everybody around you has dropped dead, and the best you've got is this pyramid from Rome with the word abracadabra, and you're just hoping that it's going to help you. And Mr. Defoe over here, hiding out in the middle of nowhere, is publishing papers talking dismissively about your use of the only thing that you can think of to protect yourself from the plague. What a time period. In the early 1800s, magicians, not to be confused with magic practitioners, I do mean sleight of hand trick magicians, started to utilize the word abracadabra. So that's when it really comes into play on, and I guess magicians were seen as sorcerers in that time period, but from a non-magical perspective, you have it coming in, and it really got taken over by the magicians instead of being utilized and practiced. I don't see the word abracadabra utilized very often by practitioners anymore. Now, that is not helped by the fact that Aleister Crowley, I know, adapted the word into abracadabra in one of his books using, this was a quote from one of the sites I did my research on, comedics and a whole lot of woo-woo. which is fair enough when we're talking about Crowley. The Arabic meaning of the word was taken by J.K. Rowling and turned into Abracadabra, which we know as the death spell in the Harry Potter books. But it was the first time that it was really noticed that we could do the thing that we do in so many other spells and turn it around and use it as a destruction spell, which is a very interesting take on it. If you reverse the word, naturally, you reverse the meaning of the word. And in doing so, you've gone from protection and manifestation and creation to destruction. And it has been stated that there are actually practitioners really wary of using it in that form due to the unknown consequences and implications of using the word that way. And I would not be doing you justice if I didn't tell you about similar phrases being used, such as the phrase hocus pocus, which was shortened from the Latin phrase hocus corpus meum, translating into "this is my body." It was a representation of turning flesh into bread and blood into wine for communion. Because, Jesus was the OG witch. I mean, maybe not OG, Samaria came first. But Jesus was one of the OG witches, and we just don't like to talk about that, do we? It's very interesting, though, seeing how much history the single word has and how much meaning it has, where we can see the evolution from supernatural, possibly, into supernatural, definitely, into the church going, nah, fuck this word, into it being taken over by magicians, Houdini on the stage casting spells that I have no idea what he's doing. Love that thought. And then Crowley doing Crowley things, and J.K. Rowling coming in like, why didn't any of you guys think to do this with it? Absolutely insane. The word is insane, and I love it. So that is going to wrap up this week's episode. I cannot wait to see y'all next week. Have a good week, and have fun out there. Go cast some spells.